Welcome to the power of automation. So good that you could join us. For the next half an hour plus, we have prepared content for you around the Microsoft Power Platform and especially whatever a C-sharp developer should know about low code and the Power Platform especially. So if you are a Power App developer, then maybe this is not the session for you. But stick around and maybe we can surprise you with something you did not know, or we can help you with the high level overview of all the moving parts of the Power Platform.
Perfect. Well, the best advice I ever got was always to begin with an adventure with the end in mind. So we will end exactly with the phrase we'll start with the phrase we'll end with, which is start small and think big. And we're not going to try to credit this quote because apparently multiple people have stated and claimed this, but it does not make it any less true. But first, let us introduce ourselves. Now, I'm Roelant Dieben. I'm a huge nerd. Been working for IT for forever, and therefore have a lot of knowledge to share about things that have been obsolete for years. So it's very nice to do knowledge share for once on a more current topic. I've been working for Dina as a software developer and cloud architect for roughly 6 years now, alongside a wonderful group of people, with my colleague Michiel, among others.
Yeah, and I'm Michiel Hamers. I'm also a nerd, also working at Ordina. I also have a great team of colleagues with Roelant, of course. I have also some hobbies like running, teaching kids how to code, and especially talk a lot. If you're watching this during the Future Tech event and you want to win some nice prizes, Ordina has a virtual stand here, so definitely check that out.
Awesome.
So, for the sake of time, we will not go through the entire agenda, but this is what we have planned for you.
And before we delve into the magical world of the Power Platform, we want to introduce low code and its recent developments a bit. And we start big. Gartner forecasts a huge growth in low code development, predicting a 14 billion industry in 2021 and almost triple that in 2026. So it's almost a $50 billion industry. If we look at how this huge increase is possible, Gartner mainly attributes this to the huge increase in software as a service and hyperautomation adoption. Brian Burke, who is a research vice president at Gartner, states hyperautomation is inevitable and irreversible. Everything that can and should be automated will be automated. And as a developer, of course, we can relate. We see an automate everything approach across almost everything we do. But it's not only market trends. There's an actual benefit in embracing low code in the form of the Power Platform.
And low code or sometimes even no code uses the pre-existing building blocks, which allows you to build processes and applications a lot faster and not only the development parts. The reusability of building blocks make testing it a lot faster as well. It will also make more people in your organization and not just IT more productive. The increased speed means we can do more in the same time frame and should reduce costs. This will improve our overall agility because we can develop and change faster, enabling us to focus on adding value for end users and our customers. The last benefit of integration is a double-edged sword, because the ease of integration can also be a vendor lock-in in the long run. It is, however, essential for successful low-code adoption that it's easy to integrate to our current processes. And this pretty much concludes our marketing pitch for low code. Since our audience is mainly .NET C# developers, we also need to address the myths and fears around low code. The first one, anything that claims to make development up to 10 times faster must cut out all sorts of corners. It's almost logical that your first reaction as a seasoned .NET developer is something along those lines, but almost the opposite is true. By using these pre-built building blocks, we can ensure that these are well tested and live up to the rigorous security standards, while this is not always the case with the code and applications we write ourselves. While we shift left mentality where developers and architects take responsibility for the security right from the requirements. The reality is some find it hard to live up to those standards, and organizations have a hard time with governance and validating these security practices. Low-code development moves security upstream without you even realizing it.
Security is so important. But the second one we want to address is when I start using the low-code platform of vendor X, I will not be able to migrate to another vendor. And it's a real one. It can be a real problem. There are almost no automated ways of migrations to move from one vendor to another low-code vendor. But there almost never is an actual vendor lock-in around proprietary solutions not be able to develop the same functionality in the low-code platform of another vendor. But you have to ask yourself, do the benefits that low-code development promise outweigh this one? The low-code development, if anything, makes your processes extremely well documented. And while there is, of course, a lot of work from moving your low-code to another vendor, you can do it iteratively by moving small chunks at a time.
The last one we want to address is the low-code hype will blow over. We, of course, do not have a crystal ball, and maybe this too shall pass, but we believe this is an unstoppable force, so we try not to be the immovable object. In no way this means there's no place for custom code, whether it's C# or Java or some other language. With all the code we write, we try to add value for our end users, and with that in mind, what is the harm of adding the same or even more value in another way? The low-code way. Low-code brings processes modeling possibilities to groups outside of IT. The groups we try to support with our IT and whose process we try to model in our software solutions. It increased the possibilities of adding the value of our end users. But now we are ready for the main act.
And the main act, of course, being the Microsoft Power Platform, the low-code platform that spans almost the entirety of the Microsoft offerings, including Office 365, Azure, and Dynamics 365. It consists of 4 main pillars, of which Power BI is a bit of the odd one out. Because to me, however powerful Power BI is, it's not actually contributing to any low-code or hyper automation. It is mainly a modeling and data visualization tool which supports our day-to-day processes with reports and dashboards and insights, but does not do a lot of automation. But since we're doing a complete overview of the Power Platform for .NET developers, we still try to include Power BI as much as possible. The second pillar is Power Apps, and Power Apps, of course, allow us to rapidly create applications, and we have included the demo later on which we build an application from scratch. And if you're interested in that as well, Microsoft offers app-in-a-day training programs for its partners, where they provide you with a workshop where you'll be able to build your own actual Power App in just a matter of hours.
And the third one is Power Automate, which used to be called Microsoft Flow. It's exactly the same platform, and to me, it's the glue that drives our low-code application. It ties everything together in a very drag-and-drop feel, where you only have to provide the correct configuration and paths. We will look into several examples during the demos, but we are going to rely on your imagination and your exploration skills. There's so much connectivity there. With so much third-party connectors, we will definitely not be able to provide a comprehensive overview. We will show you the power by providing you with the simplest of examples, but you should get the idea what the possibilities are. Last but not least, it's the fourth component, Power Virtual Agents. It provides you with a way to very easily create virtual agents, which are chatbots. They are a fairly new addition to the Power Platform family, but in my opinion lack some basic features for now. That makes it hard to compete with offerings from the Microsoft Bot framework. But to be fair, it's now so extremely easy to create a chatbot, and with some additional TLC, it has so much potential, so prepare to have your minds blown.
Yeah, really, it's awesome. And these pillars are all supported by a network of data connectors, an AI builder that lets you build and consume pre-built AI models to enrich your data, and of course, Data First, which was called a Common Data Service in the past, which securely stores and validates the data across the entire Power Platform ecosystem. And to look at this in more detail, we borrowed an epic image from Andrew Welch, featured on Runway View. He explains there in detail in the blog we will link to in the presentation. It's definitely recommended. As he explains, this is not a definitive way on modeling the Dataverse ecosystem, but it is as perceived from a Dataverse-centric perspective. And if we start at the top of the diagram, it almost always begins with data collection. And the data collection can occur through any of our Power Platform pillars, except for Power BI, which we use for visualization of the data. All native data that is not stored elsewhere, for instance, in SharePoint or in Teams or in Azure SQL, it is stored in Dataverse. And Dataverse itself is a structured relational database, but it's able to pull its data in from a lot of types of data sources, including unstructured data sources for images or documents, and even streaming data for instance, IoT solutions. When we look at the ingestion part, Azure Data Factory allows us to ETL the data from and to Dataverse. So it's a big entry point for our data and exit point. For a few data storage solutions, especially the Azure data storage solutions like Data Lake, Cosmos DB, or Blob Storage, we can integrate these directly with Dataverse, which is a huge benefit. And then we come to the analysis part, where we can start to add value past the point of just storing our data. And whether this data just flows directly from Power Platform to Microsoft Dynamics Customer Insights, or whether this is through a data lake and we consume it in the Databricks cluster. We can run our analysis on it. And we can even enrich our data through Microsoft Cognitive Services and use that to augment our pre-existing data. Mm-hmm. And we then we of course need to visualize our data. So we can use our Power BI, our stream analytics tools to create insights, and even more important, create actionable data. And of course, make it human interactable. It's very important. And again, Andrew Welch has an excellent blog on this subject, so we'll link to it in the presentation.
But we are talking low code the past couple of sheets, but we promised a session what you need to know as a .NET and C# developer, and there's no getting around it. Developers love writing code and almost inherently seems to mistrust all claims and tools that promise you to radically speed up development. But in essence, our work as a developer usually revolves about adding value for our customers and end users. So even when leveraging our coding skills to build custom software, and even if we do not want to use it for the solutions we build, we still can use the Power Platform to increase and speed up the value we add for our users. To illustrate this, it is perhaps good to look at some examples, and while this is a fictitious business case, it should make it more clear how the Power Platform can help us as a .NET developer.
Yes, and this business case starts with Contoso Bank, a financial institution which was very popular during the late 90s but suffered a steep decline afterwards. There seem to have been a lot of proof of concept tracks to improve their architecture and move them into the 21st century by moving them into the cloud, but those efforts only partly succeeded. For this business case and demos, we will outline the underlying problem, which is pretty big. Contoso Bank has a dated application architecture and is in the process of adopting a DevOps mindset. Since the COVID-19 onset, the development team has been working from home, but communication with its stakeholders is suffering without a coffee machine talk. Adopting the DevOps mindset meant management adopted the you build it, you run it take on things, but there's no formal procedure in place for separating critical incidents from run-of-the-mill bugs. So everything is classified critical by the support desk.
And again, as we are IT professionals ourselves, we are going to make a huge disclaimer here on beforehand. Please bear with us regarding the practicality of things. There are probably better solutions out there. Heck, there are probably better ways to leverage the Power Platform to help us with these issues as well. The solutions are very much the way to inspire you as a developer to find ways in your own working process to improve your own things to automate. When looking at the situation at Contoso, we can formulate 3 distinct problems we can use the Power Platform for. Meet Darren. Well, with all the working from home, he forgot how to pick up the phone and call his colleagues when there are critical production incidents. And also meet Michael, who is a stickler for process. It only will have his team act as upon critical incident when an issue is created in Azure DevOps and is posted in the correct team channel. And also meet Barbara, who is both product owner and manage quality assurance at Contoso. She does not use Azure DevOps, but knows her way around Microsoft Teams. So let's start with Darren's problem. At the moment, he has to deal with Michael, who always want a ticket in Azure DevOps. Darren used to work with Topdesk with his former employer and is not familiar with Azure DevOps. He also has to deal with Barbara, who always seems to call him to report outages and incidents directly, even during the weekend when he's not on a call. Darren is looking for a way to easily create issues in Azure DevOps. Again, not saying this is the best tool for the job, but Power Apps allow us to easily create an app in a matter of minutes that can create tickets in Azure DevOps.
For our first demo, we start from the portal, from the Power Apps portal. And our portal gives us a nice overview where to start from a couple of data sources, how we can learn the next step, the current list of apps, and a complete list of components. Well, we want to start a Canvas app from blank. We're going to give it a nice name, the Future Tech Demo app, and we'll use a phone format as the format. And we'll click Create. This will create the app for us our Canvas, our first screen, to give us a blank canvas to work with. Now, we have a nice welcome message. We'll just skip away. And here we see our blank canvas we can add our components to. In our tree view, we see an app and our first screen, and is exactly what we're looking at the canvas. The canvas gives us the possibility to insert components. So we're going to need 6 labels, a button, 2 text inputs, a drop-down box, and we'll just start arranging them like we see fit. Now you see arranging them is very easy, and it's just a drag and drop interface. You can make them bigger. I will later set it to a multi-line. Make our button the correct width to comply with my OCD, and just line everything up. Most text labels are just simple labels for our controls, and one will be the currently logged in user. So with all the labels in place, we can add a nice image to see what the app actually is. And of course, since we're creating a Contoso Bank app, we'll add the Contoso logo. So we'll navigate to image and add an image from a file. And of course, we have an image ready with the logo of Contoso Bank. We then click our total app label and give it a nice title. Do a bit of styling so it'll actually fit our page. Then we can start labeling our controls. And this first one is our logged in user. We need a title when we report an issue. The issue will have a severity, so we'll label that as well. And of course, the most important thing, the description of the issue. With all those labels in place, we can go ahead with the actual controls we'll be using in our Power App. At first, we use this control for the user, the logged in user. We go to Advanced, go to Text, which is the text that is displayed, and here we can use the Power App feature. And we use the user object, and we'll put in the full name, and it's displayed as the currently used in logged in user. We then remove the default values and give the issue title input a good name. we'll do the same for the drop down. It needs some items. It now features a drop down sample. We want a severity from 1 to 5. So we'll just post in an array of strings 1 through 5. And the do field is of course never priority 1, so we'll make that a 5. Of course, I forgot to update the nice name for the label, so we'll make that the issue severity control. Well, we then do pretty much the same for the issue description box. We'll give it the correct name for the text input value, so we will find it later on, and remove the default value. We also have to make it a multi-line, so you can have multi-lines of text in there. And it leaves the button. Well, button 1 name is fine, so we'll leave that in, but we'll give it a better description of what it's doing. It's creating an issue. And we're now ready to add actions to our button, or actually the action to our button. So we click our button, and in the top menu we can navigate to the action pane. And in the action pane we click Power Automate. And it now pops up our list of flows, and since we don't have any flows configured, we'll go ahead and create a new one. It displays all kinds of templates here, you pre-made, ready for you to choose, but for now we'll create our own. We're going to create an instant cloud flow, and our trigger will be a Power App. So we'll click Power App and click Create to create the flow. And we now have our flow. We now have our Power App that is giving us our data. We can configure it here, but we'll go ahead and add the new step. And since we want to create an Azure DevOps ticket, we'll search for Azure DevOps and select the Azure DevOps collection of actions. We want to create a work item, so we're going to select that action and configure it accordingly. We're going to select an organization name, the product name, project name for which we want to create a work item, and we make that a work item type issue. So it's creating the correct type from the go ahead. Some fields we want to get from our Power App. So we click the title and we click on Ask in Power Apps, and it creates a nice control for us, a nice parameter that we can use in our flows, and we're going to ingest from our Power App. We'll do the same for the description and for the priority, of course, which we fill with our severity value. So we're going to ask that in the Power App as well. And with this, we're ready to save the work item. So we click Save, and it's now saving it, and it's ready to go, so we can test it. Let's head back to our demo app. So we can actually select our flow for the button. There it popped up, so we can select it here. And it gives us a command line bar when it's added. Well, there it is. It's the name of the flow, so it's Power App Create a Work Item, and it expects a couple of parameters from us. And it's a Create a Work Item title, description, and priority. Those are the items we configured in the flow. I'll go ahead and post them in. They're already prepared for us. So let's paste them in there. And now we have the issue title, the issue description, and the issue severity ready to go in our Power App. And now we're ready to test it. And to show that there's no funny business going on, we'll first navigate to our Azure DevOps project. So we get our Azure DevOps project in here. It's a Future Tech project. Let's open it up. Navigate to the boards. And to show you, there are no work items, nothing on the backlog as well. So it's totally empty, what we start with. If you go back to our demo app and now click the play button to test it and fill out the form with the most descriptive issue title we could think of. Of course, select the priority 1. It's never anything lower than priority 1. And input a description. After creating the description, we are ready to create issue. So we click Create Issue. And the issue is now created. So there's not really going feedback, ongoing any feedback from the app. We should work on that probably. But if we now check Azure DevOps, we now see our items here. The website is down. Well, we can open it, and perhaps we can assign it to someone, or we can add a comment there as well. And that is our first version of the Power App. It is that easy. So we're creating an app. If you think about it, it's so powerful. We're creating an app that can create an issue in Azure DevOps. And we go ahead and save it. Well, we can close it, save our app. That will tell us we already did this a couple of times. So there's already a Future Tech demo up out there. So we're going ahead and we'll be replacing that. And we actually want to replace it. And we had some editing session going on, which we just override it. And our Power App is saved. And if we want, we could publish it. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, I think we created some value there for Darren. So let him just test his Power App so we can now move on to Michiel. Michiel, the stickler for processes. But he is right to do so because his manager demands all sorts of reports on how the support team hours are spent. Furthermore, he has had past experience with 2 developers working on the same issue without them knowing from each other and getting in each other's way in the process, analyzing the issue. So we now have a way for Darren to automatically create items in Azure DevOps, but is there a way for us to automatically create a message in Teams as well?
Well, Michiel, of course, we can exactly do that. And we're going to use a Power Automate flow for it. And we start from the same portal as we did before. We start from the Power Apps portal, but we click on flows. And in the flows section, we see our already created flows from a previous session. If we want to, we can create a new one by clicking the new flow and selecting one of the options under the new flow button. But since this is a more complex example, we're going to just add it to one we already have to save a bit of time. So whenever a work item is created in Azure DevOps, we want this step to trigger. And we wanted to trigger for this organization and project for the type issue. And when we then concatenate a work item edit link, which we use in our adaptive card later on. So it's just concatenating values from the first step. It got from the first step. And with that, we can create our adaptive card. An adaptive card is a template in a JSON format. We'll click it open here in our third step, and it just concatenates the values for the adaptive card from the first step. So every blue block you see is a parameter from the first step, and our work item edit link we created in the second step above. And then it's just that simple, and we can post our adaptive card as the flow bot to a channel. So we have the team selected. It's a Cartoso Bank support team, and we want to select the critical issues channel. So we'll go ahead and select the critical issues channel. I want to post the adaptive card we created in step 3, and we'll just hit save. And it's that easy to create a flow that when a work item is created, you'll see it in our team's environment. And of course, we want to see it working, right? So we'll just start the Power App we created in the previous demo. And let it start. And we'll start out, maybe it's interesting to see the Azure DevOps project. We now have 2 issues here, so we're going to create a third one. We go back to our app, skip the welcome message, and just run it. And we'll add an even better title than before. So we have another critical issue, exclamation marks. It's always a priority 1, right? So let's make it as a 31. And this one is even more critical than the last one. It is clearly some non-IT role that is creating this ticket. We'll just create issue, go ahead to the work items on the board and see it pop up. It should refresh automatically, and there it is, another critical issue. So we now have it on the board here. Just go over to the flows, so you can see it triggered. It triggered 15 seconds ago, it took 1 second, and the status has succeeded. So you always get a comprehensive overview if your flows are working, are okay, and are succeeding or have a failed status. And we of course also want to see it in Teams. So let's head over to Teams, to our Teams environment. You can see the Contoso Bank support team is already open in the general channel. And if we click on the critical issue channel, we see the update from Azure DevOps. We also see who created it. Well, it was me, of course, and we use Power Automate to do this. And from that, we can click back to our work item. So we have the work item link recreated in the second step, and we use it to update our critical issue to reflect we're working on it, and we're fixing it as soon as possible. Whenever I finish typing this, it would be nice if I would have signed it to a person. That would even be better. We just hit save, and that's it.
So now we have 2 happy campers. Issues can easily be reported and conveyed to the support team, but what about the release process and getting those hot fixes to the live production environment? Barbara, a part-time product owner and quality assurance manager. She used to just walk over to the software developers to inquire which build is released, but with COVID-19 and everyone working from home, she's in need to find another way. She's not a star in navigating in the Azure DevOps pipelines. She managed to destroy the production pipeline and always get lost when looking for the currently deployed build on the Q&A environments. She really liked to talk a lot, so maybe we can give her something to talk to from which she can inquire the status from the build and whether or not there are active builds running, in which case she probably has to wait a bit before testing it on their Q&A environments.
Yeah, let's help Barbara get something to talk to and help her in her release process. We start from the same portal, but we now go to the chatbot section. We create, we have some interesting options to learn more, but we'll start from a new virtual agent, create a new bot. We'll give it a nice descriptive name and select the Dutch language just to show you it is possible. If you're an English native speaker, you will probably understand. It's just some greetings and minor content. The point should still come across that virtual agents are very powerful here. It's creating our bot now for us. It should be ready any minute. And it now created a tutorial basic bot with a couple of topics. We have a chat window which we can test our bot, so we can greet it, and it gives us a standard greeting. But we probably want to edit that greeting. So you could click the customize your greeting, but we'll head over to the topics and go there ourselves. And here you see our list of topics with a couple of topics we're going to delete for now. And with those out of the way, we can edit our greeting. So we go to our greeting section, and here we see the trigger phrases. So this is something a user would say to our bot to trigger this topic. So it already has 79 phrases in it. And here you see the messages it gives us when greeting the bot. So those messages here are exactly the thing it will say to you. And we're creating an Azure DevOps bot, so we'll just update it to reflect it can answer questions regarding Azure DevOps. And a good place to start would be to inquire for the status of the build. And that one is nice, so we'll leave it in place. I'll just hit save, and we'll test if it works. So we can greet it again, and we now should see our new greeting, which is okay, but contains a typo. So I'll edit that out. Just do a space there, save it again. And it's that easy to update it. Update the bot when you make an error. We head back to the topics because we want to create a new topic around builds. So we give it a descriptive name, build status, friendly name is exactly the same, and give it some trigger phrases. And we're only going to put in 4 here. So the recommendation is it says above, start with 5 to 10 different phrases. It will learn from it. It will extrapolate on it. But for demo purposes, 4 should be enough. We can now go to our authoring canvas, so we can create our message flow. The trigger phrases are there, and we can now add our first message. And for that message, we first want to call an action, and that action is a pre-built Azure function. So we're going to get the build status through an Azure function, which is triggered through a Microsoft flow, of course through the Power Platform. And that action will give us an output. And the output is saved in the build message. And the build message is the thing we can output to our user. So that will give us a status for the build. And it is that easy. So we'll save that up and look how that works out. So we'll just copy over that trigger phrase. It will now query the Azure function and will give us back the build message. And there are no builds running. It has a great success rate, and from here we can navigate to our build pipelines. So that's pretty well integrated. And the actual demo is a bit longer, but for sake of time, we'll leave a link to the complete demo in the presentation.
Okay, when I first saw the virtual agents and the ease which they are to build, I wanted to try this out myself immediately.
And while we wanted a real-life scenario for Power BI as well, it was really stretching it. Power BI is an amazing tool with which you can do amazing things around visualizing your data. But as a .NET developer, you really have to stretch your imagination to get a real-life scenario. We did think, however, of 2 use cases. But again, in the argument of keeping our time slot, we'll leave the link for that demo in the presentation.
And of course, we could not leave PowerFX out of the equation. Introduced last March at Microsoft Ignite. The Power Platform now features its own intelligent low-code language. And as a .NET developer, you will probably take offense on the word intelligent and even the word language. So it leaves low-code. And at Microsoft, they must have thought, what tools did citizen developers use before they started to use the Power Platform? And the answer was, next to Microsoft Access, of course, Excel. So the syntax for PowerFX is almost identically to writing Excel formulas, and better yet, PowerFX is open source, so anyone can contribute. At the bottom, you see an Excel example translated to a PowerFX statement. The cell references are replaced by properties from the entities, but besides that, they are pretty much the same. We really believe Power Platform can add value for almost everyone, whether it's to speed up your process or to help clients with solutions developed on top of the Power Platform. So we really want to give you some pointers on how to get started.
And as always, a great resource to start is Microsoft Learn. It has a comprehensive guide with some excellent hands-on exercises, and we provide a link to that in the presentation. Other way to get cracking is, of course, to do the fundamental certification. The PL 900 covers the same basics, but with the added benefit of insights you gain on what the Power Platform can do for you. And the best way to start is to start. Start small, think big. Do not try to solve the most complicated problems during your first go with Power Platform, but start with something small. And just start. No, really, it's just start. The more you automate, the more time you have automating everything else.
And for the people that already have started using the Power Platform, questions tend to arise like, what apps are out there in my organization? How can I support those apps? Are these apps secure and are they compliant with our policies? How do I train my professionals to start using the Power Platform or get better at using it? Which data connectors are being used and what bandwidth can I expect? And you can click yes. Do we have anything in place for the application lifecycle management? When you are faced with any of all of those questions, Microsoft can help you with answering them.
For sure, and Microsoft does that through the Microsoft Power Platform Center of Excellence Starter Kit, which is a mouthful. And it helps you answer those exact questions, if not all of those questions. Microsoft has defined a 4-step process. in the starter kit and getting started with the Power Platform. The overview stage will help you get set up from a technical point of view. The app-in phase will cover the app-in features and how you do the proper configuration. The govern phase will help you setting up auditing, compliancy, and last but not least is the nurture phase, which will help you establish an internal Power Platform community where you share best practices, templates, and where you onboard your new Power Platform adopters. And if you think this sounds too good to be true, then go check it out for yourself. We'll share the link in the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And we also promise to include some information on pricing.
Yeah, but we are going to break that promise because we don't want to scare you away. The ugly truth is that the Power Platform has a very complicated license structure, and usually your company will cover some subset in their Microsoft 365 volume license agreement. When you check standalone pricing for the Power Platform, the prices seem pretty steep, but when you take a closer look, it seems reasonable for the benefits you are getting. The licensing document is available online and it's a whopping 32 pages long. We will provide you a link within this presentation.
For sure. And as we promised, we will end the same as we began. And as we have a mainly .NET developer audience, please bear in mind we have a lot to add as developers to the low-code community in the sense of creating reusable components, combining low-code solutions with technologies like Azure Functions. We can leverage the Power Platform to speed up our own regular development efforts. So start small, think big, but the important thing is to start.
Thank you all very much for bearing with us, and we are available for some questions and hopefully answers in the dedicated channel. We hope you enjoyed this session and we wish you a very merry rest of Future Tech. Bye.
Bye.
Complexe problemen zijn sowieso dingen waar je collectieve intelligentie voor nodig hebt. En dat vind ik de kracht van teams.
Je leert zoveel meer dan alleen maar je eigen technologie en dat vind ik gewoon heel gaaf.
We hebben onze dagelijkse stand-ups. We hebben retro's waarbij je gaat kijken van hoe werkt het team. Je bent niet solo bezig.
Je kan lekker sparren met elkaar en het houdt elkaar scherp.
Een high-performance team is een multidisciplinair team.
Wij bieden niet alleen maar individuele mensen aan, maar we bieden een heel team aan met kennis en expertise. En ook een bepaalde verwachting die erbij komt.
En wat je ook ziet is dat de mensen die in die teams werken, dat ze het ook gewoon veel leuker vinden.
We hebben een hele community achter ons zitten. Dat heet Ordina.
Alles verandert natuurlijk elke dag. Als je het over change hebt, komt er vooral op neer om daar bewust van te zijn. En te beseffen dat wat vroeger werkte, daarom vandaag niet meer werkt.
Blijven kijken wat zou daar gebruikt of toegepast kunnen gaan worden.
Dat je wel echt toekomstbestendig ook werkt. Dus dan moet je dat combineren met innovatie.
Dus constant blijven ontwikkelen en blijven streven naar verbetering in mijn job. En dat houdt het ook spannend en uitdagend, anders wordt het saai, denk ik.